Alrighty. So I'm now joined by a man, although born in England, he is a Canadian boxer and trainer living in the GTA, Toronto area. He moved to the Windsor area as a young man and began boxing. Went on to be a two-time Olympian in 2000 and 2004, and still involved, of course, in the game, boxing in the GTA, coaching in the GTA. Andrew Kooner, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Andrew Singh Kooner, because I'm a Sikh. That's first and foremost Canadian Sikh, Sikh heritage Indian, and that's a really proud really proud portion of my life that I've always carried with me of who I am. Like I'm a Sikh, and that's something that I've always been proud of.
Yeah, that's absolutely, man. You got to be, true to your roots and proud of your heritage, and man, a big background for yourself. So we'll start from the beginning. We'll talk about some of that stuff as well. But tell me a bit about growing up. So I'm sure like when you first came to Canada, like you were probably like how old, 13 or so, I think I read, and probably a little.
No. When I first came to Canada, I was only like three,
okay,
3 or 4. Born in England, and then my parents decided to move to Canada, and then we immigrated to Windsor right away. And Windsor is where I grew up. I was raised, and Windsor is where I learned how to fight, learned how to box. And Windsor is my heart, even though Toronto is my home. Windsor's always my heart.
Yeah, I guess that's where you're from. So I guess earliest memories are from here. Probably not a lot of memories from back in England, eh?
Oh no, not really. No memories of England. Although when I was promoted as a professional, I was co-promoted by a guy from England, Nick Hennessy. I have a Hennessy Sports. So I was based out of Montreal, and that was where I was based out of. And Montreal's the mecca for boxing in Canada for sure, but one of the biggest in the world as well. But I would have some of my fights in England because I was co-promoted by a guy from England. So I always had that connection with England. And then, obviously fighting there as an amateur a bunch of times. And especially the one time in the 2002 Commonwealth Games were in Manchester, England. And I won a silver medal, which it should have been a gold. And to this day, I finally started to get over that I was, but anyways, what happened there was like a promoter, one of the promoters, Mick Hennessy, he was sitting by my cousins and they were in the stands. It was sold out, Man Arena in Manchester, a lot of people, crazy atmosphere, right? And then Mick Hennessy's like, make sure he gives me a call when you get back to Canada. So then I gave him the call, and then it went from there.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, you got to travel the world and box in different countries, different continents and stuff. Something that we're definitely going to talk about. It had to have been cool for you, like just to travel. And again, they're probably promoting you as an England born when you're over there, right? So that's where that kind of gets in, right?
For sure. Actually, that is funny that we're talking about this England born and stuff because actually I was with Lennox Lewis yesterday at the this is the gym, Red Owl Boxing. It's a new gym, and this is gonna be a takeover in boxing. Like we're trying to do massive things with the sport of boxing. And I'm at the Brampton location, and I'm the head coach and the manager of operations there. But Lennox was there yesterday because Lennox lives in Brampton as well too. And it was we were talking a little bit about that because Lennox as well too, born in England, but learned how to fight and all that. Won a gold medal here in Canada, and then went back to England to fight professional. And so we had. I mean, I didn't win a gold medal and win a world championship like he did, but we had similarities like that.
Yeah, I mean, small world, right? To think like a guy
Yeah.
like Lennox Lewis has like done the same kind of path as yourself, and obviously doing big things if he's stopping it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
how did you first ever get involved in boxing? Like, was it something that you were interested in, or how did it go down?
So it's funny how I got into boxing because I was such a athletic person. I was in karate with Lamont Kersey. Kersey's karate.
Yeah.
Lamont, shout out to him. He's
Oh, he's great.
he's just a great figure in the Windsor scene, and always has been. Just a great person, a great family. Um, so I used to do karate. I played soccer, played ice hockey, and then my mom one day comes home and she's like, "You're going to the. I'm taking the boxing. You're going to the boxing gym because." One of her co-workers, she's a supervisor at daycare ABC Day Nursery on Hannah. Another shout out to ABC Day Nursery on Hannah. And ABC Day Nurseries in Windsor are, there's three locations, great daycare. Um, so she's like, one of her co-workers was at that time going out with a boxing coach. And so my mom and her were talking, and she's like, "Oh, I'd love to put Andrew in there because he needs it. He's got a lot of energy. He, at the time, being a smaller guy, being a minority, the problems that you face with racism and things like that, and so in order to defend myself, and I was doing karate and stuff, but I feel boxing is above all the other sports. So I went to the boxing gym and my coach, who ended up being my coach, Bill Grant, and it just went from there. The first day I went to the boxing gym, I just loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. I wanted it all. It was the only thing you should see when I was a kid. I was a huge boxing fan when I started getting into it. My room, like, how when you're a kid, kids have posters of like singers and
Yeah.
stuff. And I was all boxing everywhere, posters of all the box, just get all the ringside magazines, all that stuff. I was so involved in the box. I quit all the other sports that I was doing because boxing is the only thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah. And you say you believe, boxing's above a lot of those other combat sports. Is that something that you always thought, or is that something that you realized quickly
Well,
into it?
I just think, like, I mean, for me, some other people have their own opinions and stuff, but for me, I feel boxing because what it does for you. Like, for example, boxing has so many benefits of it. And I'm not just talking about in the ring, fighting, trying, win a gold medal, win
Yeah.
world champ, make a whole bunch of money, that stuff, but also for other special populations. Like one program I do, and I have this copy here, it's Rocksteady Boxing. I know there's a program in Windsor too, Border City Boxing Club. They run a program as well. But that for boxing helps people with Parkinson's. It slows the progression of the disease. It's so in those, in that sense, it's so beneficial for other populations like autistic children, special needs kids. Boxing is shown, and there's so many studies of the astronomical benefits of it for those special populations. And it's just great, youth at risk, kids that are having issues, problems, whatever. Bullying is a
Yeah.
big thing nowadays. So, some people have the misconception that boxing is just a sport. It's just like fighting. It's like a Rocky movie, but it's not. It's way more than that.
Mhm.
You learn when I started boxing, I was a bad kid. I was, getting into trouble, getting into fights. People call me names and I'll fight them. But when I started boxing, all that subsided. I became, the confidence. I had more confidence about myself. I used to walk with my head down. Now my head's up. The self-esteem improved.
Yeah.
There's just everything improved about me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're saying, like it's not really the punching that is the benefit. It's all the other things that come with it, the values, all the things you learn, and whether it be mental or physical. I always say it's kind of the central training module. boxing for me, because, you know, any athlete, you'll see tons of athletes in their training. You'll see any type of person in their training. All you need is maybe a pair of gloves and you can go at it, right? So one of the
And
oldest things too.
exactly, and it's one of the first Olympic sports back in the Athens in Greece, the first Olympians boxing. But also too, yeah, it's known as a poor man's sport because all you need is a pair of gloves,
Yeah.
wraps, and just a determination and stuff like that. It's not like hockey, you're paying thousands of dollars to get the ice time, buy all the equipment,
Yeah.
things like that. It's not like that. That's why it's a worldwide sport all over the world. Boxing and soccer. They're probably the most popular of sports around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And the
Mhm.
stories that come out of boxing, like you said, it's kind of a lot of those rags to riches stories, and, you know, they
Exactly.
come from maybe a bad neighborhood, but the boxing club in their neighborhood kept them out of trouble and got them to where they are now. So those are always the good
Exactly.
stories that I love to hear about.
Yeah, those are great stories. And the most recent one, because he just retired, is Manny Pacquiao, 42 years old. Look what he did. And we're talking about a true rags to riches story that we got to see unfold in front of our eyes. That this guy came from absolutely nothing, dirt poverty in Asia, in the Philippines, to make it to the top of the boxing world and to be revered as probably one of the greatest fighters ever. That, my opinion, is the greatest fighter that in boxing, the greatest fighter that we've ever seen.
It almost could have never been, you know.
Could have never been.
Yeah, I mean,
But
just
he
so
had that. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no. Just talking about
No,
boxing.
no. But he had that desire. He had that determination. Some people may, oh, like I have this life and it's hard, and I'm just gonna try to truck through, push through. Some people are like, you know what? I'm gonna get out of this situation. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna make my family better. I'm gonna make everyone around me better financially and everything. And that's what he did. He went to Manila, the capital, to go fight when he was like, I think he was like 13. He weighed like he was too light. He put weights in his underwear so he'd be heavy enough to fight. And then the story began from there, right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the things you got to do sometimes to
Yeah,
get where you
exactly.
need to be, right? But again,
Yeah.
kind of talking about that kind of stuff for yourself. You get involved in boxing, you start training, you know, you probably start sparring in the gym, and you loved it, you know. So
Mhm.
was that like, okay, I can start fighting now, like where you presented that and you were like, okay, or was that a thing that you wanted to do? Did you want to start competing, or how'd that go?
So the way it went at the beginning, so I used to we're training at Border City Boxing, and then I had to give also a shout out to Charlie Stewart too, because he definitely is, level 5 coach, and he's been to the Olympics. He's a great coach. He's a great person, and he was my coach for a little bit of time as well too. He helped me through some periods, and actually at the beginning when Bill Grant was my first coach, Charlie came on board as well. And the way it went there, I was the smallest guy in the gym, and I'd always have to go with bigger guys, and I would get beat up. Like I would cry, uh, bloody nose. But the thing is, like, and the thing is that I came back every day. I didn't quit. Like I was just one day get beat up, crying in the corner, and Bill, my coach, is trying to hide me so no one sees me crying. And the next day I'm there, first one there at the gym again. And the next day, knowing that right now maybe these guys are gonna get the better of me and stuff, but soon it'll be my time and I'll be the guy. And that's what you're meant to, that's what your mentality needs to be that
Yeah,
way.
that's what it takes, you know, to kind of be successful in anything, right? You know, there's going to be ups and downs, and when you're down, you don't quit, right? You keep coming back, just like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Because it's easy to quit, right? It's
yeah,
easy to just say, forget it. I'm just gonna go get an ice cream and whatever.
yeah. it's not easy to keep pushing and keep coming back and literally fighting, right?
But then the reward is so great, right? Had you done that, you never would have seen what's at the end of the rainbow, per se.
Yeah, man. And that's like, it's kind of true to your story too. Like, you know, you kind of get involved in boxing, and through all that, while that's happening, you start fighting amateur, and then by
Mhm.
1998, winning Commonwealth Games, and you know, it's probably a short period of time.
Yeah, yeah, it was, and like just at the beginning when I first started, like I was because the guys that I was sparring with and training, I was the smallest guy. I was like I
Yeah,
was saying, and I was always getting beat up. But when it was time to go in with some of my own weight, it was literally like I just walked right through them. I remember my first tournament was in Brampton at the Brampton Cup, and I just two knockout, and it's very rare that you get knockouts in
yeah,
amateur boxing. And I was just plowing through guys. So my conditioning was always great. I always run, and that's a lot of push from my dad. Like not too many athletes get that push, and they don't have that parental involvement. But I was so lucky that I had my dad there all the time, right from the beginning. He was there every day. He would watch me, make sure I was running, made sure I was doing this when I was going through my teenage years. You know, we're teenagers and we think we know everything. And like you're
yeah,
just like, oh man, why is he here all the time? Why is he here? And now that I live in Toronto and stuff, and my dad's not, he's in Windsor. I'm like, how lucky was I to have that push and to have that involvement. Very lucky. And that's the main reason why I got to the level I got to, is because of my dad.
yeah. I mean, having any of that kind of support is very vital, especially coming from your family. You know, it's
Hmm.
true love, and you know, some success early on, like you mentioned, first tournament, probably seeing some success, and things probably started rolling for you fast because you know sometimes in the '90s you start
Yeah,
training, by the end of the decade you're on your way to the Olympics. Like
yeah, like Drake, like people don't really know my career that much because social media and stuff wasn't there and everything.
exactly, yeah.
And nor do I really talk about it that much.
Okay,
But because I'm on a podcast with you talking about this, I'm gonna tell you, when
great. I
when
gotta get
I
it out
when
of you.
I when I was at 13 years old, I won a Canadian championship at 13 with only 7 fights, and then I went on a undefeated run for, I was 10-0. Then I fought a guy in Marquette, Michigan, for the U.S. champion, and he beat me, and it was very controversial, but lost fight. But then I went on another run, and for like maybe like 2-3 years, I was undefeated, and I went to the world championships, under 19 world championships in Cuba, in Havana, Cuba. And I before the year before I went to Cuba for a training camp to spar, to learn from the Cubans, because the Cubans
Yeah,
at that time were the best amateurs of all time. They're still really good. They're just, a lot of the world has caught up to them. They're not as dominant. But I won. I fought the guy that I was sparring in the finals the year later in Havana, and I won a silver medal in the finals. I got, it was another close fight, but then again, then I won a European title championship before that. Then went to the Worlds. So at a young age, I was doing a lot. Like had social media been around then people would have known like how much I was doing at that time.
yeah. That's the thing when doing research for these types of interviews. Depending on where the stuff happens, sometimes it's hard to find information. Why that's
It
why I asked
is.
you before, right? To confirm some
Yeah.
things. You never know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
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 And again, just a
Hmm.
lot. So like it's weird when you're young too. I always talk to people and they go back to like their junior hockey days or your amateur boxing days. You're just a kid too.
Yeah.
You're just getting
Yeah.
started. All this is going on at once. Craziness.
Hmm. Yeah.
Of course, we know you as a pro, and we'll get to that. But before you're even pro, you're an Olympic athlete. So that first Olympics in Sydney, I think you went one and
Mhm.
one there, silver medal or
No,
something.
I won I won my first fight against Algeria, and then the second fight I fought Thailand, and like it's funny. I can remember everything about boxing, but if you ask me other stuff, I don't really remember that much. Like what my wife's like, you remember everything about boxing, but you can't remember this. You can't, like that's the way it is. But with the Sydney Olympics, you know, that being my first Olympic Games, and I was the first one from Windsor to go to
Yeah,
the Olympics in boxing. Um, uh, and the first Punjabi to the first Sikh to represent Canada in an individual sport. And I won my first fight against Algeria. Then my second fight was against Thailand, Bijan Pomlin, and he won the gold medal, but he beat me 11-7. It was a close fight, but that's the closest fight he had in the tournament. The thing is, his other fights, he beat easily. And the thing in boxing, there's no seeding. You can fight, there's no seeds. You can fight anybody. The number one, number two can fight right away. The best guys, you don't know who you're gonna fight. That's how it goes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's cool. It's so cool, man. So stuff to be proud of. Again, the first of many, guy from Windsor, Canadian guy, representing your heritage too. I mean, something to be
Mm-hmm.
proud of for sure, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, those are memories that I'll always have with me. I got them tatted on my arm there, Athens,
Yeah,
Sydney, and then look, and Ambassador Bridge. You know, I always remember, and Windsor always.
that's cool, man. It's cool to see. I mean, it had to have been cool for you. We'll get to the 2002 Olympics in a minute too. As a big boxing fan, to go to Athens and to fight there, and even before that, some more Commonwealth games. So after
Yeah,
2000, just continued what you were doing, seeing the potential, and decided to keep going forward. Or
that's it. I mean, like I was determined. I was on a mission. I was after the first Olympics. I could have turned pro, and I had some offers and stuff. But I was like, I want to stick around for another Olympics, and that you know, then I went the Commonwealth Games in '98, got a bronze there, and then went to the Olympics. Then went to another Commonwealth Games in 2002, and you know, got that silver. And then, but I could have went pro even then with the offers and stuff that I got from this one, but I didn't want to. I wanted to wait for the Olympics again because I really felt and I really believe in sort of many others that I was gold medal potential there. But you know, just like we know with Olympic boxing, one of the most political and corrupt of all sports in the Olympics. It's already pretty much there. If you're fighting one of the better countries in boxing, it's already predetermined. Like you know the Russians, the Cubans, the Kazakhstan, and you're from Canada, and you're going against a guy from Uzbekistan. That's who I fought. Uzbekistan is one of the top countries as well, a former Russian country. I got a bye in the first round, beat Venezuela easily in the second fight, and the third fight was a quarterfinal fight, guaranteed bronze medal for the winner. And right away, if you look at the video, right away, even the commentator Ross Sammer was saying, "Oh, Kooner hit him, and a point comes up for Sultanov. That was his name, and Kooner hit, and he gets a point. Where did he get that point from? He's getting points and points, and then he's got a lead, and then I got to change my whole game plan, and I've got to go after him, and that's his game, and whatever." Things happen the way they're supposed to happen.
yeah,
Um, the experience was great, anyways,
yeah,
regardless. But I
exactly.
feel that I should have been on the medal podium for sure at either Olympics.
Yeah. Well, what people don't realize that it's more than just punching, right? Like there's more of a game to this sport than what meets the eye, you know. So like
It's
you said,
not, yeah,
yeah,
it's not Rocky. It's not a
no, yeah,
Rocky movie. It's a sweet science. It's methodical. Everything's calculated. It's not just you go in the ring and you try to beat the guy up. The defense is the name of the game. You know, the sweet science. That's what it's referred to. Boxing.
Yeah.
Sweet science.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so we kind of went through the 2004 Olympics there, and you went pro in 2006, right?
Yeah, then after the 2004 Olympics, I needed a break from boxing, and I took a year off, and I didn't do anything. Which I kind of now look back at. I'm like, you have plenty of rest when you're done. You know, you only have a window in professional sports, and in your when you're in your prime and your years where, but so every year is important. Every year is important.
Yeah.
You know, I turned pro at 20, at 20, 25, 26. I just turned 26 when I had my first pro fight. And to be honest, my pro career, it wasn't as great as my amateur career. My amateur career, I was one of the best in my weight class. Um, but in the professional game, it was different. I mean, I jumped out of the gates, and you know, my first fight was a first round knockout, and I'm like, wow, this is pro boxing, easy. Then I got a reality call the next fight, real quick. That you know, every second of the fight, you have to be you have to be focused. One shot can end it, can end everything, you know. And I was 4-0 when I went to England for my first fight, and I lost a fight there. They switched my opponent last minute. They bring this Mongolian guy, he's southpaw. I get hit with a headbutt. Never been cut before. Split right there. Blood's coming in my eye. I get hit with a shot. Go down. Come back up, and they stop the fight right away. Right away. They didn't even give me an 8 count.
Yeah.
England is like that. So, but anyways, I did like the pro career wasn't like the amateur career.
Yeah. Well, we talked about. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's a different sport. It's different. Pro boxing and amateur boxing is different. We're talking about apples and oranges.
Yeah.
There's just because you're a great professional amateur fighter, it doesn't mean it won't translate into being. And not only that, you have to be 100% focused on your only thing, and your only mentality should be on boxing, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And no distractions, no nothing. You give it 110% for as much as time you have in pro boxing, and then get out with all your faculties, hopefully, and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you talked about, you know, your decision to stay amateur back in 2000. You know, you could have went pro, decided to stay and, you know, pursue the Olympics. But it's crazy that all that happens, because you kind of talk about that decision and the pro career after. It's crazy that all that happens before you go pro. You know, like if you were to look at like God knows whose history, it's like, you know, they make their way up in amateur and then boom, all this stuff starts to happen for them in pro. But for you, it was before all that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, like a lot of the time now, the way it goes, you're gonna get better contracts, you're gonna get better opportunities if you have some accolades with you. Like you've gone to the Olympics, you have this behind you as and that promoters look at that. That's But it doesn't always translate. Look at Arturo Gatti, for example. He didn't do much as an amateur, but he was a great professional. Rest in peace, Arturo Gatti.
Yeah.
There's some of them, Mark Breland, one of the best amateur boxers of all, probably the best of all time. But in the pros, he won a world title, but he didn't become that dominant as he was in amateur boxing.
Yeah. And I mean, that was a different time too in the whole sport and the world, you know, when you were coming up into pro. And although, you know, you seems like you still had a good run. Like, you started off 4-0, you ended up retiring on top with some championship wins too, right?
Yeah, it was okay. It was a respectable career. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, the days like in your mind, like again, you remember everything about boxing, which is great for this. You know,
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally.
it's
Yeah.
great to document this stuff. You know, and it's great that a lot of the stuff happened while you were kind of a Windsor guy. You know, of course, a Canadian guy being in Montreal,
Mm.
Toronto, and representing the country through the sport. Man, it's cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was always really important for me. It was always important to represent Canada to the best of my ability and to represent my Sikh heritage,
Mm,
and represent my gym and the people of Windsor.
that's
It
cool.
was they were always really supportive of me, and I'll never forget that. I always really appreciated that. I remember when I fought my first Olympics in Sydney, and I called my mom because we always talked, and
Yeah.
I called her and like, Mom, yeah, I'm fighting in a couple of days against Algeria. And she's like, Oh, Andrew, everyone's calling your old teachers, everybody, they're all so happy, and we saw you at the opening ceremonies and stuff there. And I just cheered up and couldn't even talk, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's prideful, you know, when you get these
Yeah.
like, you know, you don't even need to be handed a trophy to get that kind of feeling, right? It's just everyone remembering you and supporting you, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. Honestly, there's no better feeling than that. To get that from other people, to know that your whole city is behind you, to know that your whole country is behind you, and to know to have that push and support, and no matter what happens, they're always gonna be there,
Yeah, man.
and you try to represent the best you can, the best of your ability.
Yeah, man. That's awesome stuff. And through all of it, you know, you could pretty much travel Canada just training and fighting and stuff like that. And also the world, like we kind of talked about before. And you mentioned, man, Cuba,
Yeah,
Greece,
yeah,
Australia.
yeah.
It's had to be really
Every
cool, like through the sport.
very, very, like, I'm very, very fortunate and I'm always appreciative of having those experiences at a young age, because a lot of people don't get that opportunity to go travel the world and see different places and see different cultures and see how people live it. I mean, when I was going to different tournaments, and I remember my first trip to Asia and in the Philippines for a tournament. We just went around, we're walking around, and we're just seeing how people live. And we're just like, this is it opened your eyes, like,
Yeah.
wow, like this is not what we have it great back home. And look at it compared to how people live in other countries like the Philippines, Asia and stuff. So it makes you more appreciative of what you have, and you respect that a lot more, and you have a lot more respect.
Absolutely, man. Those are the things I like to do when I travel too. You know, you can do all the touristy events
Mhm.
and stuff like that, but I really like to just get into like a community and see how people live their lives, no matter where it is. You know, that's what's interesting to me. And again, yeah, like you say, you reflect and you know, you realize what you have.
Yeah, definitely. I like doing that as well, meeting, going
Yeah,
and interacting with other people, and hi. And we're all humanitarians at the end of the day, man. We're all humans.
yeah, yeah.
We're
Everyone's the same. I
born.
mean, learn that through this. Talk to a lot of people, and everyone's just human, right?
Yeah, that's it.
That's cool, man.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
know, you're still involved in the game. Obviously, a love for the sport. You mentioned Red Owl and Rocksteady earlier, so seems like you know this is it for you. Boxing is your life. It's your 9 to 5, unless you're involved in anything else. You know.
no, no, no. I couldn't be, but I couldn't be. I couldn't. I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I love and be involved in the sport of boxing, and to make a living through it. I'm very fortunate. And I always say that, like, I don't have to get up in the morning, make my lunch, know that I have to go to a job that I don't really like, and I just because I need the paycheck and this and that. I I'm in a very fortunate place. I mean, the thing is, like, I've worked my whole life to get to this point where I'm able to use the sport of boxing that I've given so much to use it to help other people, to make a career and a living out of, whether it be coming on podcasts, doing my own podcast. It's called Doc and the Boxer. My podcast I do with a doctor friend of mine. He's a big boxing fan. So if you guys get a chance, check out Doc and the Boxer. So yeah, I'm very, very fortunate. And I there's not one day that I don't pray about it every night.
It's fantastic stuff, man. I was going to bring up the podcast too. Obviously, when it comes to sports, any sport, a lot of other things come with it. You're training, you're operating the gym, and there's sometimes media stuff that comes up. You've probably done enough interviews to be able to talk and break down fights and stuff, which is kind of like what you guys do on the show, right?
That's what we do, Zach. We talk about the fights, but just like what you're saying, Trey, when I was first getting interviewed, I had my first interview because I got a lot of my tapes put on a hard drive. So they a while ago I was watching them all and so I'm like, wow, I remember this, remember this. But I remember my first interview and I think it was with Windsor CBC and Tony Doucette. Do you remember him? Tony Doucette, CBC. Anyways, so I was just, my head was down and I was like, just barely looking into the camera. And then you see the progression to how it is nowadays from a lot more comfortable with all that, but it's just experience.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. And then through all that, I figured we'd be able to shoot the shit and have a good conversation about, and I'm glad that you remember a lot of it too. Sometimes it can be tough to recollect some stuff.
Of course, and then everything is in the memory bank, of course. And I'm appreciative that you had me on, and I was pretty excited about this because I love talking about the city that taught me how to box and got me to where I am now.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things that make me feel good when you talk about, your teachers remembering and stuff. When a lot of people say, once I see WinCity or, a Windsor podcast, I'm like, yeah. Sure. That's what's like, okay, this is the kind of people we want on the show. So
for sure.
I hate to wrap it up, man. We could talk all day, but
right, and then good. It's a good wrapping up because there's some going on. Fire alarm.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. Okay. Onyx Fire conducting the monthly fire alarm inspection. It's gonna go on for a while.
Oh well, I'll be able to edit through it. And dude, thank you so much for taking.
Okay, of course. Thanks for having me on. And anytime.
Yeah, we'll have to do another one, man. Because we could talk forever.
Yeah.